Everyone, this is TMP, Power Dude. So, I will be spending 4 minutes talking about new Airblast. Yay! So first off, Airblast is a cube. It's not a cone. It's a 256 by 256 by 256 cube that is like starts at your flamethrower thing and changes positioning based on its rotation. Based on how you're rotating like an XY on a pitch, like a yawn pitch. There's no roll in TF2. Now the weird thing about that is that its orientation stays the same during the entirety of this. It just changes its position, so that means the scout who's like 1 or 2 hammer units away on this axis doesn't get affected by an air blast there, where it really looks like he should. But, you know, I digress. This has some weird consequences, such as if you aim up or down, your air blast hitbox ends up going behind you a little bit, and so you can air blast people who are behind you by looking up or down. I've used that to get kills, I'm not gonna lie. So, let's talk about the way Airblast actually reflects people out, because this is really where Airblast gets cool. So Airblast first starts off by having this initial XY component vector being the horizontal thing. It does its checks not depending on how you're aiming, but just based on that positioning. At least for the XY thing. So I could be jumping, I could be like crouching and doing that kind of thing. It's not going to change a thing at all. But, on the other hand, pitch does matter. Because what happens is that it takes this initial vector that's going to be doing things at, and then it rotates this vector based on the pitch that you're aiming at. So if you aim upwards, it's going to spike them upwards. If you aim flat, it's going to spike them flat. Technically, it's going to go up a little bit because there's a minimum Z value that you can have, but it's like enough to knock you up 8 hammer units. It's not really anything. It's applied at the very end. It's something that's extremely inconsequential. Except for the fact that it kind of enables the player stickiness problem, or the player loose footing problem, I think. I'm not too sure. And if you aim down, he'll go down, but he'll actually go up. This is because of how Airblast works in its mechanics. So whenever you airblast a target, if he's on the ground or whatnot, and the vector for the airblast is pushing him into the ground, what it does is that it reflects it based on the normal of the surface that he's on. So for the most part, what that means is that when you airblast one down, he's going to go up, and I did not mean to give it that much power. You don't have to excuse me. That comes later. But for the most part, it'll do things like that. But if the normal of the surface is something different, like in this case for the spy, where the normal is something more like this, airblasting him downwards is going to send him out because it's going to reflect it downwards on this axis, and it's going to send him like that. Just think of it like a ball or something. So, anyways, the speed is not exactly that. These dudes have been flying away at like 600 hammer units per second. That's been the force applied to them. But that's because they're standing still. What it is that it's actually more like a minimum of 600 hammer units per second away is kind of the speed that ends up happening. So, the reasoning behind this is simple. The way that Airblast does its momentum in the entirety of the checks is that it checks based on the player going towards the pyros. The momentum of the player going towards the pyro, what it does that is it checks the velocity value that's going there, or the velocity vector, then it projects it onto the vector between the player and the pyro, X, Y, and Z, by the way. So it does this projection, and then this new vector is multiplied by -2, so, and then add to the initial velocity. So the new velocity is going in some weird direction, based on twice the magnitude, or -2 times the magnitude of the projection of your velocity towards the pyro. Sounds weird. It's math stuff. You don't have to deal with it. Anyways, what this means is basically, or I'm not even done yet. So it then takes the magnitude of that vector that was added to it. It divides it by 2, and then it subtracts that magnitude of said vector from 600 and applies it to the things we were talking about earlier with the pitch and the XY. Now, on the consequences, this doesn't have any consequence on the horizontal side. You'll airblast people back at the same way, but it has consequence on the vertical side, because the vertical momentum is not necessarily going to be the same as what you're pitching at. If you aim like here, and the target is going this way, and he does that, he's not going to get much from this pitch as he would if he was standing still or going away in this situation. And the 600 is there just because it's a little faster than movement. It's also less speed than fall damage, so it means to where whenever you airblast someone, they don't take fall damage necessarily. But I mean, there are ways to do that. You just airblast them again before they hit the ground, or airblast when them jump. But basically, what this ends up looking like is it ends up looking like something like this. Boom. Where you see that this dude got some vertical momentum out of it, but a lot more of that was due to the projection, how high he was above me. Well, this dude entirely got momentum out of it. Anyways, that's nearly about it. The last thing is that Airblast is a loose footing property that kind of makes people, for half a second, not have as high control over their velocity or their strafing, I guess. I guess that's how I would describe it. Oh, yeah, one more thing. There is no thing as apply, like it doesn't apply pyro velocity at all in the count, because if it did, you could do this. And I don't think that's what they intended. Okay, alright, that's it. This was just under 6. Yay. See ya!